Growing up, I had this experience all of the time where I would see someone I felt positively about nearby. I'd walk up and say hi, and then something about it would just land a little bit off. They'd get this look, or I would just have this feeling walking away from the interaction knowing it didn't go quite how I wanted to. But I couldn't really tell you why. That was so frustrating because greetings are supposed to be easy. Conversations are supposed to be easy. And I wanted to connect with people, but something between what I was feeling and what they were receiving was getting lost. So I did what you did before ChatGPT existed. I Googled it. And the advice I got was all the same stuff. Smile more, make eye contact, open up your body language, and let your face show that you're interested. I tried all of the advice. Some of it helped. We'll talk about the stuff that worked in Tier 1. But when I focused on doing all of the eye contact, the body language, the smiling at just the right time on purpose, the worse I got. Because now I wasn't even in the conversation anymore. I was just standing there managing my face and checking whether my arms looked relaxed enough, thinking, where do normal people put their hands when standing? Connecting with the person in front of me was in the back seat of all the monitoring I was trying to do to connect. It took me a while to figure out what was going on. My friendliness is real. I genuinely love people and wanted to be able to communicate that. But I kept trying to show my friendliness in ways that my face and body just didn't do very naturally. Nobody had ever suggested that maybe I could show it in a different way. And once that clicked, things got a lot easier for me.
Hello, my name is Kara. I'm a first-time podcaster and a longtime friend, and this is Fluent in Friendship.
Why it's hard. Social skills have two parts. They have a function, which is what the skill is actually trying to accomplish, and a form, which is that specific behavior that people typically use to accomplish it. Once you see the distinction, you can't unsee it. And let me show you what that looks like in practice. So to show someone that I recognize them, the common form is to quickly raise your eyebrows and then smile. But a verbal greeting, a wave, or just saying someone's name warmly all serve the same function. The person still gets the message, hey, I see you, and I'm glad you're here. To show that I'm listening, the common form is to make eye contact and to nod. But verbal affirmations like, asking follow-up questions, or turning your body language towards somebody all communicate attention too. Someone who asks great follow-up questions is signaling way more attention than someone nodding on autopilot. If I want to signal approachability, the common form is having an open posture and a relaxed face. But a warm voice, initiating conversation, and being verbally welcoming work just as well. Sometimes they work better. If I wanted to show interest, the common form is leaning in and having an engaged face. But when you ask questions, remember details from the last time you guys talked, and follow up later, I could argue that those signal more genuine interest than any amount of leaning. The insight that took me a long time to arrive at is, if you can't do the common form, you should find an alternative form that serves the same function. The function is what matters, and the form is just one delivery method. This principle applies throughout the entire series. Every time you encounter a skill that feels impossible, ask yourself, what is this actually trying to accomplish? Then, maybe try to find your way to accomplish it in a way that works for you. Before you can build alternatives, though, you need to know what you're working with. Think of this as taking inventory, figuring out which channels your bodies can reliably send signals through so you stop forcing signals through channels that don't work. Face. Can you produce intentional facial expressions that other people read accurately? Do you have a resting face that doesn't match your feelings? And here's a sneaky one. Does thinking about your face make you more natural or less natural? Because for a lot of people, the moment you start monitoring your facial expressions get less consistent. If that's you, your face may not be your lead channel. For your eyes, can you make comfortable eye contact, even briefly? Do workarounds help, like looking at the nose bridge, the general face area? Is eye contact genuinely inaccessible, or is it uncomfortable but doable in short bursts? There's a difference between those two. Can you control your posture and orientation? Do you have mobility differences that affect positioning? Does your body naturally signal openness, or do you have to construct that deliberately every time? And does the construction take so much energy that you lose track of the conversation? For your voice, can you modulate your tone to convey warmth? Is verbal communication a strength? Do people respond positively to your voice, even when your face or your body isn't cooperating? This one surprises people. A lot of folks who think that they're bad at social signals actually have a really expressive voice. They just never thought of their voice as a social skill channel. There really aren't any wrong answers, and this is really great learning. The whole point is to stop guessing and to start working with what you've got. And this is where the idea of the channels come in. A channel is just part of your body that carries a social signal. And there are 3 of them. Your face, which includes your eyes and your facial expressions. Your body, things like posture, turning towards someone, waving and nodding. And your voice, your tone, your warmth, and whether you use someone's name. Any social message can go through any of those 3 channels. The advice we usually get just assumes that the face is the default. And for a lot of us, that's the hardest one. Here's the skill. Lead with your strongest channel. Based on your audit, you identify your strongest channel and lead with it. You don't need all channels working. You just need one reliable one. If voice is your strongest channel, lead with verbal warmth. It can sound like, "Hey, good to see you." You can carry your entire recognition signal on its own. I tested this for weeks. Warm greetings, no pressure on my face to do anything specific. And the difference in how people responded in kind was a little shocking. People who had seemed standoffish before started stopping by and saying hello. It was the same me, same facial expressions, just a warmer hello. If your body is the strongest channel, use orientation and movement to help. Turning towards someone, waving, stepping closer, but not too close. Signal attention even with a completely neutral face. And if your face works for you, great. The standard guidance applies and you've got a head start. If nothing feels natural, pick the channel with the least friction and practice that one until it's more automatic. Having one reliable signal beats 4 unreliable ones every time. 3 garbled signals don't add up to 1 clear one. They just create noise. I wanted to share some of these scripts that may be helpful for you. They're not apologies for how your body works, but they do help other people translate the messages you're sending and the message you want them to receive. When your expressions don't really match your feelings, you can say something like, "I'm really excited more than I look. My face doesn't always cooperate." It's light, it's honest, and people almost always laugh a little, which immediately makes the whole interaction easier. You can say something like, "I promise I'm listening, even if I'm not making eye contact. It actually helps me focus." This reframes the behavior as functional rather than rude. It's true. For a lot of people, looking away is how they listen better. If someone seems confused by a response that you've given, "I'm so glad to see you. I know I don't always show it clearly." It's a simple phrase, it's warm, and it does the work without making the whole conversation about your face. When you need to explain to someone who matters, "Hey, I'm not always expressive, but that doesn't mean I don't care. You might have to trust my words more than my face sometimes. And if you don't know, please ask." This one's for closer relationships. It's a vulnerable phrase, and it gives them a clear instruction. Hear what I say, and if what my face says and what my words say doesn't match up, please ask. I've said some of this with my close friends before, and I think there's relief that you feel on both sides. How do you practice this skill? Pick one person you already see regularly, a friend, a barista, whomever. The next time you greet them, use your strongest channel on purpose. If voice is your strength, make the greeting warm. If your body is your strongest channel, turn towards them and give them a wave. And then notice what happens after. You're looking for small, concrete things. If your signal landed, usually you'll see something like their face relaxes. They match your energy and say hi back with some warmth. Or they slow down and stay to talk for a second instead of just nodding and moving on. Over a few days, you might notice they start greeting you first, which is a really good sign. If your greeting didn't land, that also looks specific. A tight, polite smile, a short hey, and they keep walking, or that slightly confused expression like they're not quite sure what just happened. It doesn't mean the approach failed, but you can learn something about that specific approach, which is why we experiment in the first place. When it doesn't work, first, is the function actually being served? An alternative signal only works if it genuinely communicates what you intend. Verbal affirmations with 0 follow-up questions might not be enough on their own. If you're saying, but never ask anything about what the person just said, the listening signal is incomplete. You need enough signal to be believable. Second, is the intensity calibrated? A warm, hey, works. A monotone, hey, probably doesn't. Even though it's the same word, it's received as a completely different message. And this is where a practice partner could be worth their weight in gold. They can tell you whether your voice is warm or whether it's landing more closely to neutral. Third, is context a factor? Some settings have strong norms around specific signals. Job interviews, for example, have heavy expectations around eye contact. You may need to mask strategically in those moments, which is something we'll dig into in episode 7 on strategic adaptation. Fourth, do they need the translation? Some people won't receive alternative signals without explanation. For people who matter to you, the scripts can bridge that gap. If social situations shut you down before you can use any signals at all, that's a regulation issue. Episode 1 of Tier 0, My Brain Goes Blank at Social Events, covers the reset breath. If you've got reliable signals but conversations themselves feel mechanically hard, Tier 1 builds on this foundation, especially the episodes where I go much more in detail about body language, facial expression, and eye contact. Episodes 1 through 3. Episode 7 on strategic adaptation goes deeper on when to deploy alternatives versus when to mask, the energy-based decision framework for adapting to context. And if you've tried multiple alternative channels and none of them are landing, an occupational therapist who works with neurodivergent adults can help identify what's going on in a way that this podcast might not be able to. As for what I experienced when I was younger, where I was performing so hard I couldn't keep up with a conversation in a natural way, well, these days I lead with my voice. I give a warm greeting, I ask good follow-up questions, and when my face is doing something weird, I'll just name it. Hey, I'm more excited than I look, or I really care. This is cool. I still sometimes struggle with making eye contact for very vulnerable conversations or when I'm in deep thought. It can be distracting for me to make eye contact, but I know when to give people a heads up so they can understand what message I'm actually sending. Once you find a way to get that message across, the specific performance doesn't matter nearly as much as everyone says it does.